a registered dietitian at the ShopRite of East Hartford in Manchester. I'm here today to give you some tips about healthy eating during the holidays. Yes, healthy eating and the holidays can go hand in hand. I want to give you a couple tips first to surviving the holidays with a healthy mindset. So the first thing is don't skip meals. It's something that people do all the time is they think, all right, I'm going to have this indulgent meal during the middle of the day. I'm going to skip breakfast or even skip lunch. We don't want to do that. Start the day with a hearty, healthy breakfast and lunch if it's a later meal. That way you're not ravenous by the time you get to the party and start to mindlessly eat. Another tip I like to give is staying hydrated. A lot of times we are busy talking, chatting with loved ones and friends, catching up, which is fantastic, but we forget about hydration, which is so important for our digestion and also helps to kind of trick the mind. We may not actually be hungry or need to mindlessly eat those appetizers. We could just be sipping on water as we're talking and catching up with our loved ones. Another idea, not entirely food related, but get active. Think about when you can add activity into the day when it comes to the holidays. Whether it's starting the day with a quick and easy exercise, even 10 minutes to get your body moving, or think about the breaks in meals. Maybe you have dinner and you have a lull where you're just sitting and waiting for dessert. Get up and move. Bundle up. If it's not heavily snowing or raining, just put a couple extra layers on and get outside and move. So to cut back on added sugar when it comes to some of your favorite baked items, think about fruits. Your pureed fruits are a great way to add some natural sweetness with additional vitamins and minerals and cut back on that added sugar. Take applesauce for example. If a recipe calls for a half a cup of sugar, just cut that down into a quarter cup of pureed fruit, like applesauce or mashed bananas. This will save you over 80 grams of added sugar, but still keeping a little bit of that sweetness and added nutritional value. Another thing that you can use that we don't normally think of as a sugar substitute is dates. Dates are great on their own. Take the pit out, enjoy it as a snack. But you can also make something called date syrup. Simply pit your dates, add 1 cup of dates with a 1.5 cups of water and let it soak for 2 hours. Once it's done soaking, you simply puree it and you have this delicious, sweet, nutrient-dense syrup. You can use 2/3 of a cup of this date syrup for 1 cup of sugar in a recipe. The other thing you can think about with baking is your butter and oil. A lot of recipes call for butter or oil in a recipe to give it that creaminess and kind of indulgent texture. So try to cut back with some of these fruits and vegetables. You can use applesauce or even something like pumpkin puree to cut back on the amount of oil. So if a recipe calls for 1 cup of oil, try doing half a cup of oil and half a cup of your pumpkin puree or applesauce. Another thing you can use is avocados. It's not just good for your guacamole, but this fiber-rich, potassium and magnesium-rich fruit is a great way to cut back on butter. Use it 1-to-1 ratio for butter in a recipe. Think about chocolate. Avocados go really good with things like brownies and cakes, so you can use that and skip the butter. Think about putting veggies to the front burner this holiday season. Too often we kind of forget about vegetables when it comes to holiday meals and gatherings. Think about appetizers first. A lot of times we have a lot of picky appetizers, things that we might kind of graze on, dips, chips, crackers and cheese. Enjoy those foods, but think about how we can add some vegetables to lighten it up a little bit. Instead of using just chips, think about some of the vegetables you can use as vehicles. Some of my favorite are using these mini bell peppers. What's great is they're really crisp and delicious. You can cut them in half and they barely have any seeds. So it leaves a great little pocket to scoop your favorite dip like guacamole. Another one I like to use that's kind of underrated is a little bit of peppery endive leaves. So what's great about these is they're very hydrating, nutritious, and delicious. And when you rip some of these leaves off, you have this nice little scoop. What I like to pair this with is something like a crab dip, something that's a little bit more indulgent. You don't need those crackers. It's just an excuse to get some of that really good dip. Skip that and use something like an endive leaf. And another thing, if we're talking about convenience, is getting prepared items. So what I really like are these carrot chips. So what it is carrots cut at a bias. Carrots are a great source of vitamin A. They've got a nice sweet crunch to it. So again, can go great with cheese or any kind of charcuterie board, but really cutting back on some of that excess carbohydrates. So these carrots are a really nice crunch, already ready to go for you to put on your platter. Moving on to your side dishes and main dishes for the holidays, there's tons of areas where you can add some nourishing vegetables. One thing that I like to do is use cauliflower. It's kind of one of those really versatile vegetables. It can be mashed, it can be sauteed, it has a very simple flavor and can be used in many different ways to bring out different flavors and textures. So grab a couple of these items. We have riced cauliflower. So riced cauliflower, it's cauliflower picked at the peak of ripeness, all the nutrition's intact. You have the hydration from that non-starchy vegetable, but you're also getting things like choline, which is great for your neurological function. Now this riced cauliflower can be used in obviously rice dishes, but you can even substitute some of the breadcrumbs in your favorite stuffing. Another thing we think of often with cauliflower is mashed cauliflower. So you can easily use this cauliflower, steam or roast it, and then mash it up with some of the other ingredients we talked about today, using evaporated milk instead of cream to make a delicious hearty mashed potato. Now you can substitute all the potato to make it a low-carb option for those diabetic relatives or friends you have at the table, but you could also just simply do half potato and half cauliflower if you really like that potato texture and flavor. One other vegetable that I like to really sneak into some of my holiday dishes is mushrooms. Mushrooms are great because they really have a nice kind of hearty, meaty texture and flavor. So think about stuffing. Normally we find some sausage in our stuffing, which can tend to be a little bit heavy on our stomachs. So use the sausage, maybe add a little bit less and substitute some of it for the mushrooms. Or if you have a vegetarian friend at the party, take out the sausage altogether and use mushrooms instead. So when you're shopping in the grocery store this holiday season, think about some staples, ingredients you can use to make your recipes a little healthier and you can use often in recipes. One of the things I like to use is Greek yogurt. Greek yogurt is a great replacement for things like sour cream and butter in recipes. So think about some of the recipes that you cook often. One thing I think about in particular is appetizers, so veggie dips, tzatziki. You can easily swap the sour cream called for in those recipes for Greek yogurt. You can also use Greek yogurt where sour cream is called for in baked goods, things like cheesecake. And then Greek yogurt is also a great substitute for butter, so it's a good way to cut back on saturated fat in a baking recipe. And all you have to do is if it calls for 1 cup of butter, you just simply do half a cup of butter with a 1/4 cup of Greek yogurt. Now why swap Greek yogurt? Greek yogurt is a great source of protein. It's also going to add some calcium and probiotics to the recipe. Probiotics are so important this time of year, especially when we're having some of those extra indulgences and eating a little out of schedule. It helps to keep our gut nice and healthy. Some other great staples for the holiday pantry is whole wheat flour. Whole wheat flour is great and it can be used in baking recipes. You can also use it to make roux and gravies. So whole wheat flour has all the nutrients intact. We've got your fiber, your vitamins and minerals, things like B vitamins and iron. So it's a great way to substitute and replace that enriched white flour. Another thing I like to keep on hand is low sodium cooking stock. So I have here low sodium chicken stock, but you can also use vegetable stock. You always need stock, so think about when you are reheating a turkey or keeping a turkey warm. You don't want to dry it out. You can add a little bit of warm stock, keeping it on your burner, ready to go at all times during that holiday meal. Stock is also great in recipes if you want to make a lighter creamed soup. Instead of adding all the cream, substitute and add a little bit of this low sodium broth. It adds a lot of flavor but cuts back on some of that extra calories and saturated fat. You can also use this low sodium broth to help with cooking. Instead of dousing your pan in a lot of oil, if you're noticing things are sticking a little bit, just add a little bit of broth to the pan to keep that saute going. Some other ingredients you can use to replace cream in recipes and have right in your pantry is evaporated milk. Evaporated milk gives that creamy consistency that's great in those traditional hearty winter soups, also great in those gravies and sauces, as well as something like potato gratin, where you would need traditionally to use that heavy cream. It's giving you that consistency, but much lower in calories, as well as giving you a boost of calcium and vitamin D. Another thing you can use for those people at your party who may have a lactose insensitivity or a dairy intolerance is cashews. When you soak cashews overnight, you can blend them to make a cream. And this can be used in desserts, it can be used in sauces and soups as well. So it's a great alternative for those people who may have issues with dairy. Thanks for watching, and if you need any more tips or tricks for your holiday meals, stop by and see myself or Sarah Beth, the dietitians at the ShopRite of East Hartford in Manchester.